Recognizes the gentleman from California.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Madam Speaker, I rise today to speak in support of this legislation granting the Congressional Gold Medal to the Japanese-American 100th Infantry Battalion and the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, commonly known as the Go for Broke Regiments, for their dedicated service to our nation during World War II. It's an honor and a pleasure to offer a humble contribution to this storied and inspirational group of men who answered their country's call in the face of tremendous adversity. Today we pay tribute to these regiments who served our nation at great risk and to those who sacrificed all for our freedom. These men served the nation at a pivotal moment in our history, displaying their heroism and courage on two fronts, abroad in the fight against fascism and at home against racial injustice. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, doubts in many Americans about the loyalty of Japanese Americans, these men enlisted to protect our nation were faced with segregated training conditions, families and friends relocated to internment camps, and repeated questions about their combat ability. To answer the call of duty requires exceptional courage and sacrifice. To respond with a vigor and persistence unaffected by those who sought to malign and impede their every achievement reveals an incredible spirit and admirable will. At a time when they could have easily turned their backs on a country which had sent their families to internment camps, these men chose instead to serve and to inspire, carrying the burden of knowing that at every step, through successful missions and failures, they would be judged not simply on effort or ability, but also by the color of their skin. These men created a shining example of patriotism, courage, and skill. The story of the Japanese-American regiments begins 6 weeks after December 7, 1941, the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese Navy. Inspired by growing hysteria and xenophobia in late January 1942, the U.S. Army discharged all Japanese Americans in the Reserve Officer Training Corps and made them ineligible for the draft. Similarly, Japanese Americans in the military on the mainland were segregated out of their units. Following President Roosevelt's issuance of Executive Order 9066, which authorized the internment of tens of thousands of American citizens of Japanese ancestry and resident aliens from Japan, on May 3, 1942, General John L. DeWitt issued Civilian Exclusion Order number 346, ordering all people of Japanese ancestry, whether citizens or non-citizens, to report to assembly centers where they would live until being moved to permanent relocation centers. In June of 1942, 1,432 predominantly Nisei, that is second-generation Americans of Japanese ancestry, members of the Hawaii Provisional Infantry Battalion were shipped from the Hawaiian Islands to Oakland, California, where the 100th Infantry Battalion was activated on June 12, 1942, and then shipped to Camp McCoy in Wisconsin for training. Thanks to the excellent training record of the 100th Infantry Battalion, petitions from prominent civilian and military personnel helped convince President Roosevelt and the War Department to reopen military service to Nisei volunteers. In early 1943, the 100th Infantry Battalion was transferred to Camp Shelby, Mississippi, where it trained with the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. Though the combat team was ready to deploy shortly thereafter, the battalion was refused by General Eisenhower due to lingering concerns over the loyalty and patriotism of the Nisei. Eventually, their exemplary training record convinced the naysayers, and the 100th Infantry Battalion was deployed to the Mediterranean, where they entered combat in Italy on September 26, 1943. Due to their bravery and valor, members of the battalion were honored with 6 awards of the Distinguished Service Cross in the first 8 weeks of combat. The 442nd Regimental Combat Team arrived in Italy in June 1944, where the 100th Infantry Battalion was formally integrated as a part of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. As a unit, these regiments fought for the last 11 months of the war with selfless distinction in Italy, southern France, and Germany, earning the nickname the Go for Broke Regiments. These regiments went on to earn several awards for their distinctive service in combat, including, as we have heard from my colleague, 7 Presidential Unit Citations, 21 Medals of Honor, 29 Distinguished Service Crosses, 560 Silver Stars, 4,000 Bronze Stars, 22 Legion of Merit medals, 15 Soldiers medals, and over 4,000 Purple Hearts, among numerous additional distinctions. For their size and their length of service, the 100th Infantry Battalion and the 442nd Regimental Combat Team were the most decorated U.S. military units of the war. Their performance in combat revealed their ability as remarkable soldiers, but their poise, courage, and patriotism showed also they were very remarkable men. They looked to support from their intern family, friends, and communities, and in turn, their service and commitment inspired those supporters back home to pursue newfound aspirations of their own. The Go for Broke regiments were not the only servicemen of Asian Pacific Islander descent to serve in World War II. To recognize those groups who faced similarly daunting conditions at home and abroad. The Military Intelligence Service, the 522nd Field Artillery Battalion, the 1399th Combat Engineer Company, the Women's Army Corps, the Filipino Scouts, and other heralded units. The Go for Broke and other Japanese-American brave men and women who have served deserve our continual rededication and appreciation. The debt we owe them is immeasurable. Without their service, our country would surely not shine so brightly, stand so boldly, or live so freely. As our nation endures these trying times, we can look to the example of the Go for Broke regiments to provide us with courage for the future. These men left a segregated country to fight, and unfortunately, they returned to one. They defended America with no guarantee that their own freedom would be defended in return. Their true heroism lies in how they fought for the values of America: equality, justice, and opportunity, even when those values were not fully extended to them. We will continue to look towards their example to provide hope to our communities, to look past our differences, and to unite around our common bonds. Men and women are able to serve their country today without regard to ethnicity, race, or nationality because of what these men endured and accomplished. Please join me in honoring these courageous men by supporting the granting of a Congressional Gold Medal collectively to the U.S. Army's 100th Infantry Battalion and the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from North Carolina reserves. The gentleman from Minnesota.